Hi guys, welcome. Welcome to Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel. This is episode 146 and I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. It is April. What month are we in? April 8th, 2020, and I just want to thank you so much for being here. I hope that you guys can see me and that everything is running okay. It's a little bit crazy around here lately. Everything is kind of out of the ordinary and just a little bit crazy. I appreciate your patience. I do need to address a couple of housekeeping things about the stream and about what time the stream will be taking place. Over the next number of months, we will no longer be having it on Wednesday mornings. I will update the Patreon post with the schedule and I will click the notify button so that you guys will see that go live when I update that later today. Unfortunately, because of everything that is happening around here with the kids now homeschooling and the social distancing and the kids not going back to school and until September, I sort of need weekday mornings to focus on the kids and to be a teacher, apparently. So I'm very thankful for our school. I'm very thankful for the resources that we have had access to thus far, but it also means that I need to shift my schedule around. And so we will be scheduling the stream on Saturday mornings. And so going forward, the stream will be at... I'm not sure if it's going to be at 8:15 or at 9:15 on Saturday mornings going forward. So that will start not this coming weekend, but the weekend after. So there will be no stream next Wednesday. It will be next Saturday, which I think is April 18th. So I will be updating the Patreon for that. And I do work a couple of Saturdays, like on April 25th. I'm working a day shift. So the stream will shift to Sunday morning. I got to work with what I've got right now, and that's kind of how things are going to work. So it's not ideal. It is what it is. And, we'll get through this together. So how are you guys doing? How's the social distancing going? We just had virtual spin group. It was a blast. And everybody was saying, everything is just topsy-turvy. We're all adjusting to this new normal and it just is what it is. And I just really appreciate you guys being so flexible and being here and just being amazing human beings. Welcome to Florence and Karma and Trin and Sarah and Tammy, Julianne, Joanna, Kelly, San, Tammy, Pernell, Chocolate Block this morning, Linnea, Diane, Maggie, Eve, Laurelyn, Kath, Anita, Martina, Bridget. It's so good to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here. It's just really good to have you guys all here. So in the show today, we've got an inspirational quote that Megan posted in the Slack channel that I wanted to share with you guys. It's a little bit long, but I think it's well worth sharing. We have the yarn substitution content coming up, so I'm just going to talk about that really, really quickly. And we've got some community participation that I wanted to share with you. So a couple of announcements and just kind of stuff that's happening around the community that we can chat about. And then we've got some 51 yarns to share. And I wanted to share my Made with Love along, because even though it's on commercial yarn, it is with Katrina's yarn. And then we'll talk about my spins in progress. And I have a finished spin to share with you, which I left in the bathroom. Can you believe it? I went in there specifically to grab it and I forgot to grab it. So while the intro credits are running, I will run and get that. And I have a sweater progress to share with you. So let's start off with the quote from Megan. And I don't think that she's here today because she is working. She's been on hospitalist duty, and with everything going on in the world, we thank her for the work that she's doing and anybody else in our community who is frontline workers and our essential services right now. So this is from Shantaram Gregory David Roberts. Every human heartbeat is a universe of possibility. Every human Every human will has the power to transform its fate. No matter what kind of game you find yourself in, no matter how good or bad the luck, you can change your life completely with a single thought or a single act of love. For this is what we do: put one foot forward and then the other, lift our eyes to the snarl and the smile of the world once more. Think, act, feel, add our little consequence to the tides of good and evil that flood the world, drag our shadowed crosses into the hope of another night, push our brave hearts into the promise of a new day. With love, a passionate search for a truth other than our own, and with longing, the pure, ineffable yearning to be saved. So, for so long as fate keeps waiting, we live on. Thank you, Megan. That will ground our live stream today. This idea of the universe being a possibility. And I think acts of kindness towards one another and acts of love go a very long way anyways, and in particular right now. In May through to the month of August, so for 4 months, we have yarn substitution content coming up in the How I Spin series. So this is the co-executive producer and hire tier. So if you're interested in this content, please check out the co-executive tier on patreon.com/wellforpearls. And that gives you, there's a list of things that gives you access to: the live streams, Woolen Spinning Radio, which is the audio podcast that goes with this podcast. I don't think people realize there's actually 2 Woolen Spinning podcasts. There's the video cast, but there's also an audio podcast that goes with Woolen Spinning. And from May until August, we will be looking at yarn substitution. We will be looking at how to measure our yarns. We'll be looking at how to substitute yarn when you've already spun it. And then we will also be looking at how to replace a yarn in a knitting pattern. So I hope that you will check that out. The trailer for that content is in the show notes, which are linked below at wellforpearls.com or at patreon.com/wellforpearls. There will be an intro video that will be made public that will be released at the end of the month for those who would like to learn more before they subscribe to that content, and that content will start in May. So there will be an intro video coming at the end of the month. So there will be kind of like a second trailer, and then we'll jump into the content in May. For the attentive spinner tiers and higher, so that's attentive spinners, the spin group, the studious spinner, you guys will be receiving a transcript, a downloadable PDF transcript every month with this content, and that will include photos as well. So you can catalog that and keep that in your content so that you can refer back to it, and you don't always have to have access to the vlog, which is really cool. Okay, so community participation. We've got an ongoing giveaway right now in the Ravelry group. Look for the April episode thread, which actually I'm not sure I've done yet. If I haven't done it yet, I'm really sorry. I just realized I don't think I've actually started the April episode thread yet. So if I haven't, if somebody wants to, they can go in there. Maybe Rebecca or Eve or Becca can hop in there and start the April episode thread. You just need to title it April episode thread. Maybe Rebecca, you could do that. Everyone at my house as well. Thank you, Karma. Yeah, we're all doing really well. So James and I have been carding up my Frisian fleece, a Canadian dairy sheep, and we've been carding. I've put my bats aside. I'm going to start spinning them next. Actually, I'm hoping to get to them this afternoon. It is a beautiful day outside, and I'm hoping I can sit outside this afternoon and spin. So that's what I'm going to work on this afternoon. So if I can't remember what the prompt was for April. Did we have a prompt? Anyways, James and I will be sending that out. So just pop into the April episode thread, and I think it was, what do you love about the Downs? I think that's what it was. I'm going to just pop that into my show notes so that I don't forget. Yeah, that's what it was. What do you love about the down breeds? So for for March, I had asked what your favorite hand spun was, and Mary won. So Mary, if you could send me, I don't think you've done it yet, but I think I will reach out to you. If you could send me your mailing address, although I'm not shipping anything right now, but just because I don't have access to a printer. But Jackie answered the favorite yarn that she's ever spun. We're going to do the same thing with the April episode thread that we are doing with the February episode thread, because you guys posted such gorgeous photos and I want to share them. So Jackie Revilla says her favorite yarn is hard to pick, but I think this is my favorite yarn. I had never spun this much yarn and was very excited at how consistent it was. It's beautifully spun, Jackie. I had split them hoping the colors would line up, but it didn't go quite as planned. I love how it turned out. It is a 3-ply light fingering, and she turned them into shorty socks, which are pictured in the Ravelry thread. If you want to see this yarn knit up, you can pop in there. And she had a lot left over, so she was able to give mini skeins of it to her knitting friends, which is a great idea. Now this is Prairie Firebirds from the February episode thread. What the item is that she made that she wore the most and that she loves the most. And Prairie Firebird says, my favorite item to wear is my Comfort Fade cardigan that I started as a raw Targhee fleece and processed, spun, dyed over a campfire, which sounds amazing and also very tricky, and knit into the most comfortable cardigan. The why I love to wear it. The cardi fits well. It looks amazing. And it is next to the skin soft, lightweight, and easy to throw on and off, and it travels well as it does not take up a lot of space in her luggage. She also added a zipper, which I think just looks awesome. So really, really well done. Beautiful, beautiful spin. And dye and knit, and you dyed it over the campfire, which I would love to know more. Thank you, Rebecca, for doing that, the April episode thread. I really appreciate you guys pitching in sometimes. Thank you so much. You guys do so much for me. It's just amazing. All right, books on the Slack channel, hashtag books. If you are not part of that channel on Slack and you would like to be, just click the plus button on the left-hand side of your app or on your Slack. If you're a part of Slack, that's at patreon.com/Welford Pearls. You're looking for the spinning circle. If you would like to be a part of the Slack channel. We are doing a Jane Austen book club right now. We're doing a Jane Austen along, if you will, and we're reading Sense and Sensibility. If you would like to learn more, you can reach out to Becca, who is at Bethy40. She's in the Ravelry group and in the Slack channel, and she will be coordinating this, and she initiated it. She's incredibly knowledgeable when it comes to Jane Austen, and we've had our first book club meeting, but please feel free to jump in. We're currently looking at chapters 18 to 36. And that'll be in 2 weeks when we meet again. So we've done chapters 1 to 18. They're very short. They're really fast to read. It sounds like a lot, but it's actually not. And if you would like to be a part of that, please do. So one of our make-alongs, I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way, and I'm going to change my cameras. Spindle spinning. I have been doing so much spindle spinning, so I'm excited to talk to you guys a little bit about that today. Our Made with Love along is to honor Katrina in our community, and actually if you follow Katrina on Instagram, I would highly recommend that you pop on over and send her some love, because her dear friend Anne, who's been battling cancer for 20 years, died yesterday, and Katrina's got a full heart, and so we look after our own here, and sending her a note would be really appreciated. So my Made with Love along, this is in the Ravelry group, and Rebecca, which I've linked in the show notes, wrote a beautiful blog post about this along, and it's time to do what we do best and get creative. This is the time to make and lift up others. Please read Rebecca's blog post to learn more about this make-along and this event if you would like to learn more about the creation of this amazing event. So I actually, so this is an opportunity to participate in our Crafty Jacks along, and you get a point for using Crafty Jacks fiber or yarn. You get a point if you buy something new from Katrina right now, and you also get a point if you use Kelly's Patterns, who's in the chat today. Kelly G Knits on Ravelry. Her patterns are beautiful. And she also has a couple that are from Handspun, that are for knitting with Handspun and designing from Handspun. So this, which is fantastic. So this is Katrina's Be Fabulicious. It's a 100% BFL base. And I wanted to show you specifically what this yarn looks like. If you can see that, let me put my hand underneath. The twist angle on that. So look how it's quite relaxed. It's not a really super aggressively plied yarn. This is a commercial yarn. It's a light, sort of a fingering, light fingering, and it's knitting up. I'm doing the Anchors cardigan, which is a petite knits design, which again, I've linked below. And it's this, it builds up this yoke of increases using 1x1 rib, and I'm really, really enjoying it. These are the buttons that I'm going to pop on. They're fake pearls. So just really, really, really pretty and just gorgeous sheen. This is a one-of-a-kind colorway that Katrina had 2 skeins of left. I think she'd had 4 skeins and I got 2 of them. And I've just been knitting on it in the evening. I haven't really made any progress, but the reason why I'm showing you this is because of the yarn. So if you could remember that twist angle. And this is knitting up on 3mm needles. And it's just a Mindless. I'm just really enjoying it. You know, you start at the top down, knit your way along. I'm on the 4th set of 1x1 rib yoke increases, and then I think I have one more set of increases, and I'll be ready to finish up the raglan. The raglan, sort of the last couple of increases that you have to do before you separate for the sleeves. And then from there, I'll just be zooming along because it'll just be stockinette. So knit back and forth, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. So that'll be really fun. All right, so I think that's it for community participation. We've got 51 yarns to share, but I think we'll do that after the show sort of introduction, if you will, so that I can run and grab the yarn that I wanted to talk about. So let's run the intro. I'll run and grab my Falkland yarn that I forgot in the bathroom, and we'll continue on with the show. So this yarn is still damp dry, but we'll talk about it in just a minute. So let's do our 51 yarns participation. Hi Marla, good to see you. Yeah, I am knitting socks, but I kind of burned out on socks when we were doing all of our How I Spin stuff. And because I think in that 2 years that we were doing sock content, I think I knit like 11 pairs of socks, and I just kind of got burned out with it. So I don't have any socks. I don't have any hand spun socks on the needles right now. I have some commercial socks that I haven't really been working on, but I just kind of got burned out with knitting a lot of socks. I'm sure you guys can understand. I'll come back to them because there's always, I mean, let's face it, there's always room to do socks. So, yeah. There was another, yeah, it is hard. You're right, Becca. I think there was I thought I saw a question for me, but I think it's, yeah, it's all good. Awesome. So 51 yarns, our community wide. We haven't really done a 51 yarns recently. And I was thinking about it and I was sort of like, well, there was a couple of shows there where there was just so much going on and I was sharing so much that like I had so many works in progress, and I felt like there was just a lot going on for a bit there. So we kind of, I stopped sharing 51 yarns, and then I haven't shared a breed and color studies recently. So hopefully we can get some of that going. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Elizabeth. Good to see you guys. Yeah, I did 11 pairs of socks like within like 9 months or something. And they were all different, and I was just like done. So our 51 yarns is based on our 51 yarns on JC Boggs Faulkner's book, 51 Yarns. And we've got Group A and we've got Group B. So Group A is actually going to be finishing in December. And Group B has another 1.5 years to go, which is really cool. So this is Group A. They've been working on core spun. This was back, I feel like the core spun yarns were back in just around the turn of the year. So this is Becca's core spun. I just love these colors. Finally got the big spinning projects off the wheel so I can get back to my samples. Started and finished spinning the core spun today. Boy, does it go fast. I started by using one of my spindles to remove most of the ply twist from my chosen core, which she was using a Jameson and Smith's lace weight 2 ply. Others in the group had talked about the buildup of twist in the core, so I thought if I unplied it first, it would end up a bit more balanced. Then I added all the twist back via the wrapping, which is a great idea. For the wrapping fiber, I used a wool silk bat from my local spinning group. I tore the bat into strips along the grain and drafted it lightly and made little nests. I did the core spinning at a ratio of 4.6 to 1. And the yarn is certainly a bit thick and thin, but it's lighter than I thought that it would be, and it relaxed nicely once she steamed it to finish. Yeah, really cool. One thing I will pay more attention to next time, I think I'll include this type of yarn in my certificate portfolio, is keeping the angle of the wrapping fiber more consistent. Sometimes I wasn't wrapping it around the core, but more along the core. So that's where instead of holding it at a 90-degree angle straight out, like you would for differential plying, she probably was sort of more parallel. I need to keep my hand position more consistent, and I will also spin my own core next time. That would be very cool, Becca. But that was a blast, and I'll definitely be doing it again. Well done. Okay, so Group B, this is Lauren's fine and medium wools. So this is from post number 117 in samples and swatched one. She's been spinning for about 1 year, and it occurred to her that she was selecting her fiber, but that she'd never actually spun merino. So she spun a natural brown merino top from Maple Valley Fibers in Michigan. She had about 20 grams and spun a 2-ply with a short forward draft. She could tell the staple length was shorter than what she's used to, and it took her hands a few yards to get used to it. It came out at about 12 to 14 wraps per inch with a grist of about 1,300 yards per pound. It's beautiful. Really well done, Lauren. For her medium wool, she spun a natural brown CVM pencil roving from Swing Vines Farm in Michigan. Her main takeaway from this sample was that she didn't love the preparation for the fiber. It was patchy and also had some fuzzy white bits mixed in. It makes me wonder if the carder or the processing, like that, if it wasn't clean and that was fiber from another fleece. And they are visible in the finished yarn, which is too bad. She would love to try a different CVM sample. CVM and Rommeldale, some of those fibers, they're some of my absolute most favorite to spin. Anyway, this time I made a 3-ply and she accidentally added too much ply twist, so the finished yarn is smooth and round but a little bit dense. Wraps per inch is about 14 and with a grist of 733. Beautiful. Love it. So much fun. Thank you everyone for sharing. I really appreciate it. So my Make 9 has been sort of a work in progress, and I had made a Make 9 and then I had redone it completely. So this is my new Make 9, and I actually switched out. I have the updated image on my project page in Ravelry. I actually changed out the upper left-hand corner is the Trailhead by Veronique Avery, and I changed that one out for the Shore cardigan. So that one is a design by Carrie Bosstick Hogue, and this one has a cable down the back, and it seemed, and when I was looking at the yarn that I had been spinning from the Frisian fleece, I just knew that because it's so dark and it's the yarn is very, very dark chocolate brown, and the cable will get lost, and the yarn is very light and lofty and airy, and unless I make it a 3-ply, which I really don't want to do, because the Downy 2-ply is just perfect. I wanted to choose something a little bit simpler, and so I'm going to do a top-down raglan, same shape, same idea, but the Shore cardigan instead of the Trailhead. So no cables, stockinette, top down, no seaming, and I think it'll just work a bit better for the yarn. So Anchor's cardigan is the one that's in the top right-hand corner there. That's the cream. That's the yarn that I'm using Katrina's Be Fabulicious out of. And the reason why I've got this up is because that cardigan uses the same weight of yarn as the cardigan right here next to me, which is Ancatrix, what's it called again? Can I remember what it's called? I don't know why. Little Love. And it calls for a light fingering. And looking at and knitting with the Be Fabulicious, the twist angle on that Be Fabulicious is super relaxed. It's when you have those nice relaxed twist angles, they are just gorgeous yarns for doing like lace. And I don't personally love the aesthetic of those yarns, because for me, I really like when yarns are plied to be quite tight. I like that really high, severe twist angle. But I was spinning this as sort of like a potato chip spin over the last week. And this is West Coast Color. West Coast Color, Lynn Anderson's Falkland, 100% Falkland. So it's the same as that Pantone colorway that I just spun, same base fiber. But I spun this differently. So I spun it with a little bit more ply twist, a little bit more singles twist. And I just finished plying it last night at like 9 p.m. So it's still damp. And while I was getting ready for bed, this one's quite damp. While I was getting ready for bed, I let it sit in some wool wash, and then I brought it upstairs and I hung it to dry. I snapped it. But when I went to ply it yesterday, I was plying it outside in the sun, and I was thinking about this yarn because I knew that I had at least, because I'd already plied one skein and I had already 400 yards of 2-ply. And I was intentionally keeping the ply twist of this yarn a little bit gentler. And I didn't worry about how consistently I spun this yarn. I just sat down and started spinning, and I had two 100-gram braids of this fiber, and I think I have a photo of it, which I wasn't gonna show because I completely forgot that I had it, but of course I have a photo of this fiber. So this is the fiber, and I don't know why this is so not sure why it's quite so blown out, because I had fixed all of the color on the webcam. But when I was plying it up, or when I started plying it, because I had put more ply twist in the singles, while I was spinning it, because I put it on my Magikarcraft Suzy Pro, which has a ratio of 27-1 because I got a super fast whirl for it. I thought, well, I've got all this singles twist. Maybe I should just keep the twist angle of the plied yarn and do a 2-ply, because that was always my plan, and keep it a little bit more relaxed but balanced. And maybe I should do the Little Love, because this is semi-solid. When I hold it up, like there's going to be a little bit of striping, but I can hold each skein, like I can knit, stripe them as do 2 rows from one skein, 2 rows from the other. It'll minimize some of the striping, because overall this is very green. And so I thought, well, the BFL is spinning up so beautifully, and the Falkland is an equally sort of forgiving fiber, just like the BFL is. And so I sort of thought, well, maybe, if I have a second 400 yard skein, maybe I could get another, maybe I would have enough yardage to knit that cardigan out of this yarn, because it's a light fingering. I mean, it's finely spun, and so I have enough. So this is 200 grams of fiber in total, and I have 1,124 yards pre-washing. So I need to reskein it to see exactly how much I have. But the size that I wanted to knit for the cardigan calls for 1,300 yards. But the finished cardigan bust measurement is 41 inches. So she wants you to do, there's a lot of raglan increases, because it's a top-down raglan. You start at the back neck and build out. My bust is 33 inches, and my upper bust is 31 inches. And so I sort of thought 41 inches is probably, it'll just constantly be falling off. And because I've done that before, where I've knit that much positive ease in a raglan, and I always, the Felix is a good example, I always end up ripping it out and remaking it a little bit smaller. So I would prefer to have it be sort of more like 35 to 36 inches in the bust, so I won't need as much yardage. And it's knit on 3.25 millimeter needles, and so I thought I would do some swatching this weekend and sort of see. I'll wind one of these skeins up, get the exact yardage, and then I'll take it to work and I'll do a little swatch and sort of see where I'm at, because I think that I have more than enough yardage. The grist of this yarn pre-washing is 1,124 divided by 200 grams. It was exactly 200 grams. I put the yarn on the scale and it was 201, and then it went to 199, and then it stayed at 200. I was like, that's so crazy. So the grist of this yarn is 2,550 yards per pound. Isn't that crazy? 2,500. So, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I hope so, Florence. Thank you. I think it'll stripe a little bit, but I think I was looking through people's projects. I went to the Yarn Ideas tab on Ravelry, and several people have used the Malbrigo sock yarn, which is a little bit variegated, and it's the effect and the finished yarns, it's still really, really pretty. It's not too over the top. So I sort of thought, well, I'll do a swatch and see what I think and go from there. Because the other thing I was thinking was knitting another Anchors cardigan, because I have enough yardage for that as well. And I'm loving that pattern so much, and the shape and just the look of it, that I thought that would be an option as well. So there's lots of options out there, and lots of stuff to make. So I could sit here and look at Ravelry all day. But that's why I wanted to share with you the BFL, the twist angle on the BFL on that commercial yarn, because this has ended up being just a really beautiful yarn. And Falkland is such a beautiful fiber because it's a medium, it's a medium wool. It's a little bit, it's like Targhee. It's just that, and Polworth, it's just that little bit harder wearing. It's still next to the skin soft. It floofs up and poofs up a little bit in the washing and finishing process. But it's, you can knit it, at a nice gauge, and you're still going to end up with like a really lightweight, beautiful garment that's not heavy, and it's just going to come out really, really nicely. So I'm really happy with how this yarn came out, and it was exactly what I needed. I needed a potato chip spin, and something that I wasn't looking at my wraps per inch, and I wasn't looking at anything that was too structured and being too kind of over the top about it. Like, I just needed mindless. Do you know what I mean? So this is my Crafty Jack's spindle that Eric made. It's one of his Turkish spindles, and it's beautifully made. It's beautifully balanced. And I've already spun. This was a bat that Katrina gifted to me after my dad died. And oh shoot, did I put it in the show notes? It's African Sari Silk and Firestar. And it's just like this really great sort of art bat, if you will. And of course, it's my colors. I finished spinning this back in the fall, and then this project kind of just got put aside, but it's been so beautiful outside that I've been standing in the in our front yard while the kids have been playing in the afternoons. And me and the other cul-de-sac moms have been having a 1 p.m. like coffee date, and we all stand at the end of our driveways and have a chat. And I've been working on this. So at the beginning of midweek last week, this was empty because I'm doing the second half of the fiber right now. And this was empty, and I've been able to build it up over the course of Monday, Tuesday, and last Friday, because I didn't work on it on the weekend. And hopefully I'll have this done and maybe even have it plied by next Saturday when we live stream again. So I've only got these three little nests left to do, and I've just been really enjoying the simplicity of this. And so when I was working on this, I had selfishly ordered from what are they called? I'll talk about them when they come in the mail, because I know they're being shipped right now. But I had ordered a couple of support spindles because I've been really excited about support spindling for a while, and I just haven't made it a priority. And so because I've been enjoying my Turkish spin so much, I pulled out my Russian, and I've got 3 of these that I got on clearance actually from Ancient Fiber Arts at one of the I think it was at Knit City a couple of years ago. And this was Woolen Spinning Fiber Club when I first started the Patreon way back in 2016, and it's been stashed all this time. And I only had this little bit left. I had these 4 little nests plus a 5th one. And I started playing around with my Russian spindle, and then I put this aside. So every evening for about 5 minutes, I've been sitting and working at it and trying to sort of continue to improve and get better. I need a spinning bowl. So in the order, I like a really good one, because I've been using like little ramekins and they're not really working. And this has a nice speed to it, but I need like something where like in a little ramekin it travels too much and it moves around too much. And so I need like a little one of those ones that has like a hole in it where the spindle stays put. So if anybody has any recommendations, I'd really appreciate it, because I've seen a couple of spinners, support spindle spinners. They have the ones that are long and narrow that have the little holes in them, and you hold it between your legs. If anybody knows where you get those, I would really appreciate it, because I have 2 Tibetans on their way, and that I want to play with. And because support spindling and Turkish spindle spinning are 2 things that I would really like to have a project going on each. So have a Turkish spindle project going, a drop spindle project going, and a support spindle project going like all the time. because I love my wheel spinning, and I've been really enjoying my e-spinner so much because my battery pack from the Woolery came yesterday. So we'll talk about that more next week after I've had a chance to play with that. I'll do some video and I'll show it to you guys. And but being outside, and because the kids are home and we're going to be kind of back to what it was like when they were toddlers, having these spindle projects, I'm just finding they're really life-giving for me right now. They're really positive, and I'm really excited about them. So, yeah. The bottom side of a teacup. Oh, okay. And then do you just put that against the edge so that it doesn't move? That would be really helpful. One must have matching accessories. Yeah, totally. Eve, you're so funny. 700 grams for your recent jumper spin. But if Rachel spins it for me, I'll have 3 jumpers. You know what? One of the reasons why I think I get such high grist is because let's talk about that for a minute, because we have talked about it quite a bit in the last couple of episodes. Because I had that blue. So anyways, if anybody has any ideas about support spindling and support bowls, or like what you use, please let me know. Because I have another little Tibetan one. Yeah, that's a great idea, Kelly. A piece of wood, and then just drill out a tiny hole that's only 1 centimeter deep. I need to talk to Eric. Maybe he could make me something. So I have this little bitty here that I got from, where was this from? I think it's a Kapar. And this is, again, sort of some woolen spinning. No, this wasn't woolen spinning club. This was when I was trying to decide if I wanted to do a Etsy shop. I ultimately decided the answer was no. And this was my very first yarn that I ever did. It's so thick, or like, it's so dense. This was the first yarn that I ever made on a support spindle. And from these little roll eggs, these are the little roll eggs that I made. It's just Corriedale, some gold and natural. And then this was my yarn. Oh, there we go. Isn't that cool? It's very dense, very thick and thin. But I made it on this little Tibetan. I'm pretty sure this is a Kapar. I think I got it. I think I actually got it right before he died. Anyhow, it's a really cute little spindle too. I don't know if I can show you how it spins. It's quite lovely. It's quite fast. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to do it. I'm spinning it with my wrong hand. Anyways, because of the wood tips on both of them, they travel. It would be nice to have something where I can work and the bottom won't get wrecked. So anyways, that's my little experimentation that's been going on the side with all of the sweater spins that I've been doing. Okay, so before we say goodbye, let's talk about my, I think we'll skip my Felix today. I've done one arm. I'm halfway down the other one. I wanted to talk about this grist thing for a minute. So maybe I'll just show this to you really, really quickly. I'll switch the cameras around. And I'm knitting the sleeves doing one round of each yarn, because I have these like all these different yarns that I spun. I know, it's crazy. All of these different yarns that I spun. And so I'm holding one because otherwise I was getting too much striping in the sleeves and it looked weird. So I've been doing that. So one sleeve is done. I did them bracelet length because I'm going to run out of yarn. And it's funny because I can feel in the sleeves how much denser the yarn is. As I work my way through the skeins, because I had 3 skeins of this yarn, I can feel how much denser it is as I go on. So the sleeves are more dense than the body. But this is going to be cropped. But the reason why I did the sleeves, I stopped knitting on the body of the sweater, was because I was ready to start the ribbing, because it's a cropped sweater. This is the Felix by Amy Christoffers. The reason why I stopped knitting the body was because I want to use up as much of the yarn as I possibly can, and so that's sort of, I'm just trying to knit the sleeves, finish them off, and then I'll knit to the sort of where, I'll knit as much as I can to finish off the body, and I'll also do the button bands. So unfortunately, I've kind of ended up with this stripe here and here. This is where I held my stitches for dividing for the sleeves. But I think once all is said and done, you're wearing a shawl, it'll be fine. The button band will be on, the buttons will be on, the visual distraction will be fine. So this is the Felix by Amy Christoffers. So that's sort of what it looks like over top of my Simple Something, which, if you're curious about this sweater, I talked about it last show in episode 145. And if you're curious about the shift cowl, I finished this and talked about it in episode 144. So you can go back and see those episodes. So that is my Felix. And this was some of my earlier spun yarn. And the grist on this was... I don't have it. I think it's in my Ravelry. I think it's in my Ravelry handspun project page, actually, if my memory serves. This was West Coast color as well, and I knit this in for part of my spin the bin. I was trying to spin up stash fiber and like use it up, basically. It's a Polworth mohair silk blend, so a little bit more dense because of the mohair anyways, and it was 1,000 yards per pound. So I ended up with a total of 620 yards and 260 grams of fiber. So not a ton of yardage, which is why I'm doing my sleeves before I finish off the body. Yeah, and this was my knit swatch. And this is actually part of the yarn substitution content. So that's why I'm trying to finish it off. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, you guys have tagged me in a whole bunch of stuff, so let me just catch up and make sure I'm not missing anything. The cut part rests on my chair between my legs. I will show you a pick and slack. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Becca. And then, did you say what sweater you're wearing? I missed it. No, I didn't actually, Diane. And I have a story about this sweater too. So do you want to hear that? And then we'll go back to grist for a minute. So we just had virtual spin group, and so I just told this story. So I'm sorry, Eve, you have to sit through it again. This is the old penny, and actually I'll link it in the, I'll find it in my projects page, and I'll link it in the live chat. It's one of my most favorite sweaters that I've ever knit, and actually I've worn it as much, if not more, than my what was it called? The Acer cardigan by another Amy Christoffers pattern. The Acer I knit in Malbrigo Arroyo when I was pregnant with James. And this I knit, I said 2006 this morning to virtual spin group, but I actually knit it in October of 2010. So I was a little bit off. But it's this cardigan here. So this is the pattern. It was one of the only Vogue knitting patterns that I've ever knit, one of the first and one of the last. So that's to the actual pattern itself, the link that I just posted, and the second one is to my project page. I knit this in Barocco Blackstone Tweed, which unfortunately has been discontinued. I used 10 skeins in the natural colorway. My mom actually gave me this yarn for my birthday that year, and I had a lot of problems with it when I first finished this sweater around styling and how to wear it. So the back of it is actually all cabled. And it's a raglan. And then the front is all cabled. So the sleeves are too big and they were too long. And actually I found a hole this morning. So I need to seam it up and fix that. And I have some yarn that is a close enough match that I can fix it. But I've always worn this with the sleeves turned because they're too big and they're too long. But what happened was yesterday, the kids had asked for smoothies for their morning snack. And so we had everything lined up on the counter. And I was just adding stuff into the BlendTec jar. And the reason why it's important that it's a BlendTec jar is because of the size of it. And the kids wanted something, and I turned, and I went like this, and the whole thing went sploosh. And I was wearing I was wearing the sweater. So I ended up with cinnamon and oat milk from here to here, all down both sides. Cinnamon and oat milk. I was just like, no. The kids thought that like something had broken. Something pretty much did break. So anyways, I threw it into a quite a warm bath of water, and with some eucalyptus wool wash, which is how I found the hole, which was great. And then I spun it dry in the washing machine, just on drain and spin. And I laid it out in the sun, and it came out perfectly. No evidence of cinnamon, no evidence of milk. So I'm feeling pretty proud of myself. So if you spill milk and cinnamon on your hand knit sweaters, everything will be okay. And because it was sitting out in the sun all day yesterday, it's completely dry. And it was funny because this morning the kids went running downstairs to check on my sweater to see if it was dry and if it was okay. So it was awesome. All, the little things. Yeah, thank you, Diane. It's a great pattern. It's not, it's a Vogue pattern. So of course it's like one of those patterns. But it was actually quite easy. And I feel like, I might be wrong, but I feel like I modified it from being a bottom up to a top down. I'll have to check my notes because I'm sure that I wrote a blog post about it. So I will see if I can link that for you. So this yarn is the Falkland, the Pantone colorway that I had spun a few weeks ago. And this was the same fiber as the yarn that I just finished. That's the Falkland, also West Coast color, also 100% Falkland. And this fiber ended up being a really high grist as well. And so somebody had said to me, and this is finished yarn is 11 wraps per inch, so it's a DK, and I ended up with 896 yards and 230 grams. And so somebody said to me, well, like based on like the Craft Yarn Council and the grist charts, I would have thought that this yarn at that grist of 1,800 yards per pound, that it would be more of like a fingering or a light sport weight. So why this is important is and we have addressed this a little bit over the last few episodes on the podcast, this is one of the beauties about your hand spun. So when we're first learning how to spin and we're first sort of making those initial beginner yarns, we tend to draft a lot of fibers, especially if you're drafting short forward. We tend to draft a lot of fibers, we tend to pinch them quite hard, and we tend to smooth them quite hard. Or when we're going backwards, we tend to do the same thing, but we're pinching and drafting quite a few fibers, and we're squeezing all of the air out of it. As you become more experienced and as you become an intermediate spinner and you sample and you try different things and you work with different fibers and you work with different preps and you kind of figure out what works for you, stripping down your fiber, pre-attenuating it. Like let's say this is commercially combed prep and it's not one of Katrina's beautifully spun bats or prepped bats. Let's pretend this is commercial comb top. So like one of the things that I do is I'll pre-draft the fiber and then I add a little bit of a twist to keep it nice and organized. And then I pre-draft the next little bit and the next little bit. And I'm adding a little bit of a twist every time, which my friend Kim McKenna showed me to basically just keep your fibers really well aligned and keep them really organized, and to preserve that underlying prep. And you're going all the way down, creating this beautiful airy prep. So then when you go to spin, if you do your short forward and you squeeze all the air out of it, or you do your short backward and you squeeze all the air out of it and you really pinch and you really squeeze it, all of that air that you've gone to the effort of pre-drafting in is now gone, right? So if you can draft forward and just, add your twist, whether it's high twist, medium twist, low twist, whatever. But if you don't smooth that quite so firmly, and you leave that little bit of air in there, but you're still twist locked, like I can't pull that apart without breaking it. I'm looking at my camera to make sure that I'm in view. I'm still twist locked. And then when you draft forward your next little bit, again, you're not squeezing all of that air out of it and compressing all of that air out. So you'll notice two things will happen with your yarns. Your grist will increase and you'll get more yardage per pound of fiber, or more meterage per kilo of fiber. And the second thing that you'll notice is that your yarns are lighter and they're loftier. And so a DK weight yarn like this Falkland, when it knit up, I ended up with this really, really beautiful, sorry for the crinkling, swatch. Let me just make this a little bit bigger for you. So this is knit on 4mm needles. And what I've ended up with is this really beautiful fabric that, has nice bounce and memory and elasticity. And the 1x1 ribbing, is structurally sound and nice. And that was on 4mm needles. And then the other knit sample was on this one is the 5mm one sample. And this is the 4mm needle one. So this is 4mm needles and an even better fabric and an even more structurally sound fabric. It's got lovely, lovely give. Right? This is next to the skin soft. You can't see through it, but it's still structurally sound. So when you're drafting your yarns and you're working with your yarns, to create that higher grist and that higher yards meterage, you don't want to necessarily compress so hard. So you can still spin worsted without sort of squeezing the air out. So the top sample there, the unwashed, you can see that the twist angle, is about the same as the washed. But it doesn't have that same poof factor, and the washed is a little bit more poofy. The bumps on the yarn sort of almost like lift up, so you get like that bumping effect, which you don't get in the 2-ply that I made today that I shared with you, because the twist angle was a little bit more gentle, and it wasn't quite so severe. Whereas with this yarn, I wanted a higher twist angle. I wanted sort of more of a poofy yarn, and you're also dealing with a thicker yarn because it's a DK weight. And you can see there from my notes that I wrote, for my singles, yes, they were spun short backward, but with minimal smoothing. And that's how you keep your yardage high and your grist high without creating really dense yarns. Does that make sense? Does that help? See if I can put this even closer. You can really see the closer this is, the more you can see sort of the difference between the unwashed and the washed. See how the washed has that like bumping factor? Each of the bumps kind of curve upward and out, whereas with the unwashed, it's smooth and flat and it doesn't have the bumps because it hasn't had an opportunity to be finished, and the fibers haven't sort of, I think of it as like springing to life, like that poof factor. And this is 100% Falkland. So it's the same Same fiber, different color as this yarn that I showed at the beginning of the podcast. Yeah. I did smell great, Kelly. You're right. I smelled like cinnamon and oat milk, which is so good. So I hope that is helpful. There have been a lot of discussions in the group recently about grist and about yards per pound, and trying to maximize our yardage and what we can get from our fibers. And sometimes you just want one of those really quick spins where you just sit down and spin, and if it comes out really dense, you don't care. But if you've got 200 grams of some fiber and you want to maximize your yardage, and maybe you want to try like a 3-ply, and you want to end up with like, say, a sport weight at 14 wraps per inch, and you want a 3-ply, and you want to really try to like push your yardage. So you're spinning to a wraps per inch of double what you want to end up with. So you want to spin for a 3-ply sport weight, you want to spin to a wraps per inch of 28 for your singles. Pre-draft and attenuate your fiber, and divide it into 3 equal piles, and then work on drafting forward and working to that finer single, and then don't smooth quite so much, and see if you can spin that fine single, adding an adequate amount of twist to be twist locked, and maybe even a little bit more, because you want to account for being able to ply adequately. Like, I like to have slightly higher twist yarns if they're going to be sweater yarns, like this Pantone Falkland that's right here, and just see if you can spin a little bit finer and not compress all of that air out of there, and end up with really, really dense yarns. Yeah, moth proof, hopefully. I hope I don't have moths. That would be awful. Yeah, super interesting. Makes sense. Does the lightness of these yarns affect the wear at all? I haven't noticed that, but I put a lot of twist in. So like, obviously the Falkland that I finished this morning is the exception, but like these samples, 2-ply Falkland, high twist, we'll have to see. All sweaters are going to pill a little bit, because there's always going to be those short bits, right, in our yarns that need to work their way free. So, you have to sort of see all these different fibers, like my simple something, there's merino in there, there's alpaca in there, there's silk in there, there's Gotland, there's targi. Like, this is going to probably wear quite well. This, I'll report back. That's why we do the podcast. Yeah. So I've never noticed a problem. Like my Marie Chen today, so I have been trying to figure out how to like just shrink it down a little tiny bit. So that was the Clun Forest fleece that I had processed with my friend Diana years ago, and I spun in August. I call it my death sweater, because I made it while I was grieving. Well, not that I've stopped, but during the really intense grieving of my dad. And, I sat on the front balcony in August and just spun and spun and spun. And then Katrina dyed it for me, and I just knit and knit and knit. And that was a 2-ply. It was spun very similarly to this yarn here. And it was Clun Forest. And I was looking at it today because I washed it. Again, I threw it in the spin cycle in the washing machine to get it as dry as possible. And then I threw it in the dryer for about probably 8 minutes by the time all was said and done, because every 2 to 3 minutes I kept pulling it out to check it. And it's actually just finishing in the last stages of drying. So I'll report back on the Slack channel about how it went. That sweater's wearing beautifully, and I wear it all the time, which is why I'm trying to just cinch it down a little bit. So yeah. Yeah, exactly, Elizabeth. Pin draft everything and helps to draft everything. Absolutely. I don't know if you said it already, but what's the difference? Is there something about Falkland so Falkland is from the Falkland Islands. They're sheep that were taken there, and they're actually their own breed, but they are very similar to Polworth in how they spin and how it spins and knits up. But they are different. They are different wools, and they are different sheep. There was a really good, maybe it's this link. There was a really, really good article that was written about Falkland wool. Grown only on the Falkland Islands east of Argentina, the Falkland sheep are a combination of Corriedale, Polworth, and Donahue, and Doan Merino. It's very white, and the staple length is between 4 and 6 inches. I really love Falkland. It's probably my favorite fiber to spin. And I think part of that is because of the stuff that Lynn gets is really beautiful through West Coast Color. Falkland is one of the first things that I ever spun. And I've just always loved it. Always. It's just always been one of my favorites. I like Polworth. I don't have anything against it. I like Corriedale. I like spinning those fibers. I love Finn. I love the Downs, which you guys know. I love Clun Forest and Suffolk and Cheviot, which is a down-like breed. I love the Frisian. I'm loving spinning that. But Falkland is my favorite. If I could only spin one wool for the rest of my life, it would be Falkland. And of course, my Copenhagen cardigan that I finished in the fall, it's out of Falkland. It's just one of those fibers that I always come back to. I just love it so much. So it's just me. Everybody has their thing. Yeah, Sarah Anderson uses it a lot as well. It's just, I don't know. There's just something about it. I just really, really love it. I've always loved it right from the get-go. And like I said, it was one of the first things I ever spun. That and merino, which I didn't love. I also, one of the first fibers I ever spun was Shetland. I loved it. I still do. Romney, I loved it. I don't spin a lot of Romney, but I do love Romney. I'm doing that Romney Gotland right now, which I haven't really talked about because I just got into it today and like really got started on spinning the sweater for it. So I'll have more on that next time. So I'm hoping next time we'll have some Frisian spinning. We'll have some Gotland Romney spinning. And yeah, I'll let you know what I decide to do with my Falkland and what I decide to knit up with it. And maybe my feet, hopefully this will be done. We'll have that to talk about. So I hope everybody's doing really super well, and I hope that you guys have a wonderful weekend. We will see you on the 18th. That will be the date of the next live stream, and the show will go live probably sometime on Monday or Tuesday. So we'll have sort of a 10-day break, which is nice because I didn't end up getting a break in March at all. And so if that's okay with you guys, we'll skip a little bit. Oh, Falkland details on page 16 of the Fleece and Fiber source book. Thanks, Becca. And until next time, you guys, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy all the things. And yeah. Totally, Linnea. I'm so thankful for all of you, for your takes that got me into my own little breed study. That's fantastic. That's what we're here for. We're here to enable. So until next time, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy dreaming. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a good weekend. Bye.